Best. They're investigating. No worries.
Playing me. I was busy making a tech. Busy. That's. Oh, Ricky, so much. That. Also. Sorry, I didn't realize. Thank you. We have. See, I can't.
Hello, everyone. Can anyone hear us online again?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep.
I'd like to open the meeting at 5:35 p.m. and start with the acknowledgement of traditional owners. The Curtin Student Guild would like to pay our respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders members of our community by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land which the Bentley campus is located, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and on our Kalgoorlie campus, the Wongatha people of the Northeastern Goldfields. We acknowledge and respect their continuing culture, the contributions they make to the life of this university, city and region. In attendance, members present, we have Lorian Hazefa. We have Bridget, Cooper, Tom, Rabab, Nicole, Razan, Dylan, Mitch, and others and myself, Ben, and Morgan is currently in the bathroom, but is here. Others present, we have Nor, we have Joanne, we have Ella, and we have Eleanor. There are no apologies. Yep, much better. There are no apologies or absentees, from what I can tell. I'll move on to item 3, which is disclosure of any potential or perceived conflict of interest. Is there any conflicts that anyone would like to declare? Okay. I'll then move on to item 4, which is the minutes of previous meeting, and that the representation board approves the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 19th of the 5th, 2025 as a true and accurate recording of proceedings. Is there any comments that anyone would like to make on this first? Will I be able to get a mover for this motion? Tom, and a seconder? Bridget? All those in favour? That is carried. I'll now move on to item 5, which is matters arising. There are none. And then now item 6, which is public question time. Is there any questions relating to reports? Okay. I'll then move on to items not for discussion. There are none. And then item 8, which is reports. Starting off with the President's report, which was submitted. Dylan.
Thank you very much. I'll take mine largely as read, adding on further from the report. We have been in conversations with the university around the food pantry project. That's developing very nicely. We've got agreement from the university to fund that in an initial stage for rollout, hopefully within the coming weeks. I travelled to the education conference of the NUS, presented on the Northwest Shelf and climate change, along with student housing and housing reform, and why we need a national approach and national campaign to make student housing better. Along with that, I appeared on the Welfare Officers plenary. A big focus, which is continuing coming into semester 2, is pushing further for action on student housing. This has involved speaking with the media. Hopefully there will be a story coming out soon on this front, so do stay tuned for that. We are also working with Make Renting Fair WA, which is comprised of Shelter WA, Unions WA, and a few other peak bodies and non-for-profits in this space on a particular survey for students living in housing, or just students renting in general. We're working with them to finalise the questions on that to make it relevant for all students, and then we'll assist with pushing that out as well over the coming weeks. The next stage of the assessment policy review is out. The Guild has been doing the rounds to secure support for universal submission times. We've had some positive overtures in that way, but we still need to secure the goods. On the Guild front, the strategic plan went out to all reps for consultation. Thank you to the representatives that offered their thoughts. The first draft of the full plan will be going for consultation at the next Guild Council meeting ahead of final drafting and approval in August. Stage 2 of Clubs Hub is under development now, which is very exciting and very welcome. And I'm very happy to come before this high body today and to inform you all that the student kitchen will be opening on Monday. The student kitchen will be opening on Monday after many months of approvals and construction. I'd like to thank Vernon, our Managing Director, for holding feet to the fire to get this over the line and to get this open for semester 2. So that will be very welcome. It's a really nice facility, an increase in the number of microwaves, a nice new fridge, and lots of other things as well. So that will be very welcome by students, and that will be open on Monday. So that's very, very, very exciting. That's it for me.
Look forward to all the doors being opened.
All the doors will be open. So yeah, very exciting stuff. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Are there any questions on this report? Okay, I'll now move on to 8.2, which is the Vice President Education report. I'll just quickly note that I also included my report for last month, which I had missed as I was on leave and I forgot to submit. I'll take that as read and answer any questions on this report, though. I'll move on to item 8.3, which is the Vice President Sustainability and Welfare report, which was submitted.
I take the majority of it as read and happy to answer any questions. I do want to announce that the lolly wall now features gluten-free and halal options, which is great. And there are a lot of things being rolled out soon. Currently working with a few unions and student societies on a racism campaign, which will also be announced soon. And the recycling hub and smart bins are also set to be rolled out this semester.
Are there any questions? Ella?
So there's a national study into racism on campuses, which frankly I was very unhappy with because of my concern over the political intent behind this racism report and diluting certain experiences over others. And so basically where I am at is demanding from this organization or NGO for a better study that more accurately reflects what students are experiencing and commitments that there will not be any coercive recommendations that come out of this study.
Are there any other questions? Okay, I'll move on to item 8.4, which is the FBL representative report. Nicole, that was submitted.
I'm happy to take most of it as read. The only update I have is that I will have a law stall at the city campus. This is in August. We've decided a date now. But this is in partnership with FBL student engagement as well. So it'll be to involve more of the law students and introduce them more to the guild. Another update is orientation's going well. All of the orientation for undergrad and postgrad is now complete. But yeah, happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Nicole? Move on to item 8.5, which is the Faculty of Science Engineering representative. Cooper, your report was submitted.
Yep, I'm happy to take it as read, and yeah, orientations have been long days for the past couple of days. 9 a.m. starts are not my normal thing. But yeah, they've gone well, and spoken to a few science and engineering students, especially at the Science and Engineering Expo this afternoon, or this lunchtime. So yeah, happy to take it as read and answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Cooper? I'll move on to the Faculty of Health Sciences representative. Bob, your report was submitted.
Yep, I'm happy to take my report as read and I can answer any questions. Just wanted to update that I had my undergrad and postgrad orientation sessions held last Monday, and it both went well. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Awesome. Are there any questions? Okay, I'll move on to the Faculty of Humanities representative. Tom, your report was submitted.
Yeah, not much to add. Just I had a few meetings with students which weren't on my report because I submitted my report last week. And orientation's going well.
Are there any questions for Tom? Okay. I'll move on to student assist. The student assist report was submitted. Joanne.
Hi, I'll take it as read. The only update is around the paid placement. So just to let everyone know that we'll be doing up like a flyer. It's starting to look more like a booklet at this point with all the nuances. That's a bit more student friendly for them to understand what the criteria are.
Are there any questions? Mitch.
I just want to commend your team on the new flyers that I've seen with a lot more different targeted flyers that have been printed as well.
Well, thank you.
Are there any other questions? I will move on to the International Student Committee President report, which was not submitted. Hazefa, do you have anything you'd like to add to this, though?
Yes, I would like to add. So this month has been focusing on helping international students settle in. So there's
your mic is quite muffled. We can barely understand.
Can you hear me now?
Not really.
Hello.
Are you happy to put your update in the chat, and I can ask Mitch if he'd like to read that?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you, yes.
Yeah, so this month has been focusing on helping international students settle in. So there's been a large chunk of international students coming on campus. So I've met many students on campus for the first time and held and showed the campus and assisted them with like housing and safety tips and explaining how to avoid scams, especially since Many of them haven't secured accommodation before coming in. Many of them are living in dorms. So accommodation was something that most of them had issues with. So like I was helping them with finding listings, offering, going to inspections on behalf for students who are in different countries in their home country, but were unable to come to inspections. I have personally went to those inspections on behalf of them, and then also provided like support regarding like where to ask for support in campus regarding various issues. Many of them didn't know how to enroll and stuff. So yeah, it was all about helping international students settle in. And tomorrow I'll be making a short video guide on how to find housing in Perth as an international student, covering inspection tips and general advice based on real student experiences. And also, I've been reaching out to different local businesses throughout the month for securing giveaways and freebies for our O-Day stall, aiming to make IC stall as much as like fun and presentable during the O-Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Zephyr's verbal report? If not, I'll move on to the Postgraduate Student Committee President's report, Mitch, which was submitted.
I'll take it as tabled, but happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Mitch? Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chair. I'd address this question to the acting Postgraduate Student Committee President. Are you able just to provide a little bit of information to this board on what is in the IP fact sheet that's been developed out of the encampment MOU? This is definitely a big thing and a big achievement. So congratulations on getting this through, but just sort of what are the overarching areas of this, which I'd expect you would know off the top of your head.
There's some information on have it. Because this set was actually finished more than a month ago. It was in my last report as well. So because I like to keep people updated on what I've done, what I'm doing, you know, the projects I've been completing. So, you know, there's some guidelines around transparency of funding. The supervisory team is now required to disclose to the student source of funding for both stipends, scholarship, any other funding and in-kind support that's received, and the source of any data that samples provided, and any money used to purchase software or dissemination or used for dissemination costs. There's some guidance around what students' rights are to do with intellectual property, how publication work, and what happens to information now in the public domain, including when you publish an academic paper and how you can protect it, and things like once you've published, if there's no IP protection, for example, then anyone can take that information and use it. There's information about what happens if you have to sign a confidentiality agreement, what your responsibilities are, why you might have to, and also that you don't have to sign it. You just can't do that project if you don't. So you can move to a different project if you're not comfortable with the confidentiality requirements. That students have the right to disseminate their findings, and some information on who to contact. And the Guild is listed first in the list of where to go for more information. And the rest of it is the research office and the commercialization office.
Thank you, Mitch. Are there any follow-up questions? I'll move on to the Queer Officers report, which was submitted. Morgan.
Yeah, I'm happy to take my report as read and answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Morgan?
Morgan, what are those things that you recently installed in the equity space?
Oh yes, my condom dispensers. We recently got, I forgot about those. We recently got 4 government-funded condom dispensers. There are now 2 in guild reception and 2 in the equity space. Hopefully this stops people taking 20 at a time. And they also look neater because they're not in a trick-or-treat bucket.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I'll move on to the Women's Officers report, which was submitted. Bridget.
I'm happy to take it as read and answer any questions.
Is there any questions for Bridget and her report? I'll move on to the Accessibility Officers report, Lauren, which was submitted.
Yeah, July is Disability Pride Month, and the uni is getting in on that. Can you guys hear me? Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah, the Catton is getting in on Disability Pride Month, which is pretty cool. So we got some merch, and I've also seen some posters just around the uni about Disability Pride Month. And they raised the Disability Pride flag. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there, but they had like a little sort of informal ceremony, flag raising. So that's exciting. I've also got an event coming up for Disability Pride Month shortly after O-Day. This month was a bit of last minute, got a surgery date with like sort of 10 days notice and then decided to do it. So it was just kind of a lot of like scrambling to get things organized just in case I would be out for a couple of weeks. But I've been recovering really well. And so that looks all like everything will be good. I'm just now very on top of things. The event Accessibility Matrix post also launched. I think I saw that today. That's something that Carla from Student Engagement, I think that's the team she's on. She's working very hard on getting this over the past couple of years. And essentially a little like table that lists like the accessibility of all the events, of all the accessibility elements available at a guild event, which I think would be a really useful tool for everybody going forward. And yeah, I think that just about summarizes it if anyone has any questions.
Are there any questions for the report? Thank you, Lorian. I'll move on to higher education developments, which was submitted. Are there any questions for this report? Okay. I'll now move on to the motion that the representation board now notes the reports. Could I get someone, a movement, Mitch? And then Cooper to second. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. I'll move on to item 9, which is the items for discussion and resolution, starting with 9.1, which is demand respect for La Trobe Student Union. And the motion reads that the representation board endorses and signs the joint open letter from the La Trobe Student Union, respect student representation, scrap La Trobe's new student council. This moved by Dylan. Do you have any comments?
It's relatively self-explanatory. A common practice of universities in areas outside of Western Australia where we've got legislative protection as student guilds is for universities to try and subvert completely independent student unions and established sort of bodies that they have large levels of control over. So a student council has been established at La Trobe University. This is something that the La Trobe Student Union is against. So what's that led to is that funding has been cut from the La Trobe Student Union and given to this new university-run student council. They reached out to us, being the LTSU, to ensure to ask us to sign on to this. I think it's a worthy cause and something that the Guild should get behind and put our name and logo to. So that's what this motion is on.
Tom, would you like to speak to us?
Yeah, I think Dylan covered it quite well. I believe that student union should always be independent and democratic, and that this kind of move goes against those principles. And that an attack on any student union is an attack on every student union.
Are there any other questions or statements that put towards this motion? Okay, I'll read the motion once more. That the Representation Board endorses and signs the joint open letter from La Trobe Student Union, respect student representation and scrap La Trobe's new student council. This is moved by Dylan and seconded by Tom. All those in favour? All those against? There was no one against it. And that was carried. I'll now move on to item 9.2, which is student housing demands. And the motion reads that the Representation Board demands that Curtin University and its housing provider implement a rent and fee freeze, install air conditioning in all student accommodation, improve safety through lighting, CCTV, secure access and surveillance, as well as ensure timely repairs and maintenance of all facilities and services. Razan, would you like to speak to this?
The Curtin Student Guild sent the university a letter on the 3rd of July. It's important to note that what the Guild is requesting for our students in housing, they're not luxuries, they're basic requirements for safety and habitable living conditions. Over 1,000 students signed our petition calling for these changes, yet Curtin failed to respond meaningfully, leaving students to endure extreme temperatures and unsafe environments simply based on what they can afford. Now they are also enduring freezing cold temperatures and also still unsafe environments. I'd like to move that the Representation Board demands Curtin and its housing provider to implement a rent and fee freeze, install air conditioning in all student accom, improve safety through lighting, CCTV, secure access and surveillance, and ensure timely repairs and maintenance. The university's refusal and delay to act while continuing it sets a dangerous precedent that safety and comfort are tied to how much these students can afford, and that's unacceptable. Curtin is a major player in this accommodation and cannot hide behind complex arrangements to avoid responsibility. Students deserve secure housing, equal standards across all residencies, and immediate improvements, not just after an incident.
So, Cooper, do you have any comments you'd like to add?
Razan covered it pretty well, but yeah, as a student who lives in student accommodation, the temperatures can wildly fluctuate, and putting a ban on air conditioning in 40-degree heat waves, where even at 4 a.m. where it's as cold as it's going to get, it's still 30 degrees, is unacceptable. We are in winter at the moment, so this isn't an exact issue, but we've got the other way now. It is very cold temperatures in many accommodations. Also mold. I've personally know people who have had mold in most of their wet areas, and the Unilodge has not done anything really to fix this, and they're still increasing prices. I've been in accommodation for a year and a half. When the new year rolled around, there was a fee increase, which I haven't seen the justification for this fee increase. There's been no added luxuries or basic necessities either. So I just don't see why they need to raise these prices when they're not providing anything in exchange. So, yeah.
Thank you, Cooper. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Eleanor?
Yeah, I mean, I think the demand for freezing rent in student accommodation and obviously getting like air conditioning is really important. Like the state of student accommodation, especially since it's been, you know, gutted and privatised, is horrific. And like, you know, it preys on especially international students to pay exorbitant fees for something that doesn't meet our basic needs. And yeah, action on that is obviously desperately needed. But I did want to know like what action on this like actually means in terms of because in the actions it just says continuing the campaign. Like what campaign? Like I haven't seen anything on campus about this. I haven't witnessed any events about this. None of the students I've talked to have noted any campaign. Or, I mean, if anything's happening, no one knows about it. Like, this is a sorely needed, you know, like, there's action that has to be taken right now on this housing crisis. And, like, yeah, so what does this actually mean? Like, yeah.
So we have a housing campaign. The housing campaign during summer was called Turn Down the Heat. And we had massive, if you were on campus, especially around the Guild, we had dozens of big placards that said turn down the heat and had a QR code for a petition. So that's where we got the 1,000 signatures from. And that was our orientation day throughout the semester. In terms of action, so the motion and what the action has been, the action is that we want Curtin to implement a rent and fee freeze, install air conditioning, improve safety, so more lighting, CCTV, secure access, surveillance, and ensure timely repairs and maintenance. 1,000 of those signatures are Curtin students as well, most of them. So that's 1,000 of students that would have been on campus or seen it through social media. But yeah, this campaign is ongoing. Obviously, right now we don't want to turn down the heat. We want to turn up the heat and get students having heating and things like that. But this campaign's been pretty blaring since the beginning of the year. So if you've missed it, apologies, but it has been all over campus and social media.
Any further comments? Tom?
Yeah, just regarding awareness of the campaign, I know that at least in Guildhouse, where I live, students are well aware of the campaign and quite supportive. So,
Are there any final comments to this motion? If not, I will read the motion once more, and which is that the Representation Board demands that Curtin University and its housing provider implement a rent and fee freeze, install air conditioning in all student accommodation, improve safety through lighting, CCTV, secure access and surveillance, as well as ensure timely repairs and maintenance of all facilities and services. This is moved by Razan and seconded by Cooper. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. I'll now move on to item 9.3, which is rejecting the Special Envoy's push to impose the IHRA definition. The motion reads that the Representation Board condemns the coercive elements of the Special Envoy's plan to combat anti-Semitism, particularly the use of funding and visa powers to enforce the definition, and instead calls for inclusive, student-led anti-racism strategies developed in genuine partnership with university, student staff and affected communities. Dylan, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, look, I think we're heading into a very dangerous patch when it comes to freedom of speech. And we're seeing a lot of attempts to police what can be said and effectively trying to weaponise genuine hurt and fear in the community at the moment in order to stop criticism of Israel, actions of the Israeli government and what's happening, the genocide in Palestine. What we're seeing at the moment is plans being put forward that will effectively lead to the full adoption of a very dangerous definition, or at least an interpretation of a very dangerous definition that effectively says that it is anti-Semitic to criticise Israel and the ideology of Zionism. That's something that the Guild's always pushed back against. We don't believe that that is the case, and it's something that's even noted in the memorandum of understanding that was signed after the encampment, is that the Guild will oppose this. The idea of using the visa system to seek to deport people if they don't agree with you on the question of the genocide in Gaza is very troubling. The idea that universities need to crack down on students for doing the very thing that this Guild did just last year in supporting the Palestine and Gaza Solidarity Encampment is deeply troubling. Curtin has not adopted the IHRA definition, and that is a good thing. And that's thanks to a lot of advocacy from us here at the Guild. But if this is implemented at a governmental level on top of that, we're going to be in a very tricky situation. It's going to be a very dangerous situation for free speech around this country at the moment, at a time where people are standing up and realising what's happening in Palestine and are standing up for human rights. The response from some sections of the community to instead call these people racist is quite appalling. And we as the Curtin Student Guild, as someone that's always pushed back against this, need to make a clear position on this now that this report has come out. And we need to engage to make sure that this isn't implemented in its current form as proposed.
Zon, as seconder, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, echoing Dylan's words, like freedom of speech is just being attacked left, right, and centre in the name of protecting Israel from criticism, which is outrageous. And there's so many problems, like there's so many layers of problems with this. At the core of the plan is to endorse IHRA. Even Ken Stern, the principal draft of the definition, said it was never intended to be a campus hate speech code. This order is an attack on academic freedom and free speech, and will not only harm pro-Palestinian advocates, but also Jewish students and faculty and the academy itself. 7 of the 11 examples attached to IHRA concern Israel, and these have been used to accuse scholars, students, journalists, human rights organizations of anti-Semitism for supporting Palestinian rights and criticizing Israeli government policies. And the concern is that censorship of academic events, student groups, campus activism across the UK, US, and Europe, which what we've seen will be reproduced here in Australia. I'm really concerned and alarmed by the plan's funding-related threats. It proposes a full withdrawal of public funding from schools and universities that, quote, fail to act on anti-Semitism. There is a complete vagueness of what constitutes to failure, and the weaponized use of IHRA. The concern here is that it puts institutions at risk of losing funding for simply allowing students or staff to criticize Israel's horrific human rights violation record. I also echo the Jewish Council of Australia's condemnation of the plan as just being, again, quote, straight out of Trump's authoritarian playbook. It calls on using visa powers to monitor political activism, and these proposals threaten the safety, well-being, and autonomy of students, especially those from Palestinian, Muslim, and First Nations backgrounds who are already over-policed and underprotected, mirroring current activities in the US. We've seen students already arrested and some of them deported because of policies like this, including Mahmoud Khalil, Rumeisa Öztürk, and Yunsoy Chung, to name a few. Rumeisa and Yunsoy were both deported. Mahmoud was arrested by ICE and released. And lastly, I shared the growing concerns regarding the credibility of the special envoy herself. Gillian Siegel's family have been accused of a $50,000 donation to Advance, a far-right organization known for racist and conspirational rhetoric, which seriously undermines public confidence in her impartiality. Her ongoing political alignment with pro-Israeli lobbies and organizations, and her dismissal of concerns over war crimes in Gaza creates more concerns. Universities, they must remain a bastion of critical inquiry, where students and staff are free to engage in in meaningful and sometimes uncomfortable conversations about genocide, war crimes, colonialism, and global justice. And I finally ask that the Representation Board joins Amnesty International, the Australia Palestine Advocacy Network, the Jewish Council of Australia, and many others in calling on the federal government to consider these deep concerns and reject the plan.
Thank you, Razan. Are there any further comments to this? I start Ella.
Yeah, I agree with everything people have said, particularly what Razan said at the end, that this is a Trumpian attack, that this is an authoritarian attack on, universities if it goes through, or if the Labor government chooses to adopt the recommendations, and also the point about Gillian Segal. And from the start, Albanese appointing Gillian Segal as a special envoy was always going to end in this kind of result. She is an extremely far-right political person, as Razan just went through, and, she is a supporter of the Israeli state, and she's refused to, recognize the horrors that Israel is unleashing on the people of Palestine. And so, yeah, I think it's concerning, but it's not surprising. And I also think in the context of what we've seen on campuses over the last year, with a lot of repression and free speech being meted out onto pro-Palestine groups, it's important. And Curtin isn't immune from that kind of repression. Student activist groups trying to do Palestine activism at Curtin have been had their rights to actually organise and do things taken away and severely restricted by the university, and in some parts by the Guild as well. So I think that is actually worth considering if the Guild is serious about fighting against the attacks on free speech, if the Guild is serious about fighting against the attacks on pro-Palestine activism. I think there should be more spaces for campaigns and clubs and collectives of students to participate openly in pro-Palestine activism, in organising in a democratic way on campus. Students, the only way, history has been changed is when people have fought, especially on university campuses, against oppression, like the anti-Vietnam War movement, and the student encampments, across the country and across the world were an important step in that direction. And I do think more and more it's harder for random groups of students to come together to organise around what they care about. And I think the Guild should reflect on that and, actually open up more spaces and ways for clubs and for groups of students who care about particular issues to come together and organise in more accessible ways, because it is quite hard. The security at Curtin has partaken, from my personal experience, in repressing students who are part of Students for Palestine, putting up posters for Palestine, putting up posters for Friends of Palestine WA rallies around campus. Security has watched us and they've come up to us and they've intimidated us about that. And I think that is concerning. That is part of where this special envoy recommendations, the direction that goes in. So I think there's some reflection to be done by the Guild in terms of how we can make it more accessible for students to organise activism in a grassroots way that isn't always through official club ways, because some students do want to organise campaigns around issues they care about. And it's actually difficult to start to get that off the ground if, you're not part of a club or you're not part of the Guild, actually. So I just think that's something important, and there should be more spaces for that to happen. And Curtin doesn't want that to happen. They don't want more activism to happen on this campus that's open, it's democratic, that any student can be part of and organise. So I think I just wanted to raise that because I think it's important, and particularly with what we've seen at UWA over the last 6 months, banning leafleting, banning postering, banning lecture announcements. I think from what I've seen at Curtin, it's not necessarily we're far off from that reality as well.
Thank you, Ella. Is there any further comments? I'll go back to the motion, which is the Representation Board condemns the coercive elements of the Special Envoy's plan to combat anti-Semitism, particularly the use of funding and visa powers to enforce this definition, and instead calls for inclusive, student-led anti-racism strategies developed in genuine partnership with university students, staff, and affected communities. This is moved by Dylan and seconded by Razan. All those in favour? All those against? No one's against, and that's carried. I'll move on to now item 10, which is general business. Is there any general business? If not, move on to item 11, which is sorry, I'll go to the item. It's not on this, but the meeting evaluation. Tom.
Yep, I felt it was well focused upon student benefits. Everyone's conduct was effective and polite. It was good that all the questions were relevant. It was good to see that, and I feel that people actively work together to share their actions and improve and collaborate.
Thank you. I'll move on to item 11, which is the next meeting. The next ordinary meeting of the Representation Board is on Thursday, the 14th of August at 5:30 p.m. to be held in Council Chambers. Documents and motions to be submitted no later than 4 p.m. on Thursday, the 7th of August to the Guild Secretary. And myself. I'd like to close this meeting at 6:32 p.m.